The clock struck midnight in the small, quiet town of Maplewood. The streets were deserted, save for the occasional flickering street lamp casting eerie shadows. The wind howled through the trees, rustling the leaves in a ghostly symphony. Lucy sat alone in her living room, the glow of her laptop illuminating her face. She was working on a research paper, trying to ignore the creaking sounds her old house made. Her parents were out of town, leaving her alone for the weekend. She glanced at the clock again, 12:01 a.m. She sighed and took a sip of her cold coffee, shivering as a draft blew through the room. Suddenly, she heard a faint noise coming from the basement. It was a soft, rhythmic tapping. At first, she thought it was her imagination, but the tapping grew louder and more insistent. Her heart began to race as she stood up, the floorboards creaking beneath her feet. Probably just the old pipes, she whispered to herself, though she wasn't convinced. Gathering her courage, she grabbed a flashlight and headed towards the basement door. Each step felt heavier than the last, and the tapping continued, now accompanied by a faint whispering that sent chills down her spine. She opened the basement door slowly, the hinges squeaking loudly in the silent house. The beam of her flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing the dusty stairs leading down into the pitch-black void. Lucy took a deep breath and descended the stairs, her hand gripping the railing tightly. As she reached the bottom, the tapping abruptly stopped. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of her own breathing. She swung the flashlight round, illuminating old boxes and forgotten furniture. Everything seemed normal, but the feeling of being watched was overwhelming. Just as she was about to turn back, she heard the whispering again, clearer this time. It seemed to be coming from behind an old, tattered curtain that hung in the corner of the basement. With trembling hands, she pulled the curtain aside, revealing a small, dusty mirror. The whispering grew louder, and she could now make out words: her name, Lucy, Lucy. Her reflection in the mirror looked back at her, but something was wrong. The eyes staring back were not her own. They were dark, hollow, and filled with malice. The reflection grinned, a twisted, sinister smile that sent a wave of terror through her. Lucy, come closer, it hissed. Paralyzed with fear, Lucy watched as the reflection's hand reached out from the mirror. She stumbled backward, dropping the flashlight. In the darkness, she felt the cold, bony fingers wrap around her wrist, pulling her towards the mirror. She screamed, but no sound came out. The basement seemed to close in around her as she was pulled closer to the mirror, her reflection's grip tightening. Just as she was about to be dragged into the mirror, she broke free and scrambled up the stairs, slamming the basement door behind her.